If you would like to purchase a pre-printed fabric panel, please go to spoonflower.com and type Kathy Schmitz in the search bar without any spaces. You can also hold your phone's camera over the QR code and a small yellow tab will pop up. Click on the tab and it will take you to my Spoonflower shop. Please order a fat quarter on Petal Signature Cotton. Thanks! Happy March! Here is our design for March. It is the Queen Bee. She's got her little crown there. And we're gonna do some different stitches. I went ahead and got started on some of it. I did the stem stitches and some of these lazy daisies. And I'm gonna show you these lazy daisies over here. So I just wanted to remind you all that you can always thread your needle under the previous stitches so that you don't have to make a knot and you don't have to go through too many. Now there's no knot and it's nice and smooth on the back. Okay, so to make a lazy daisy, what you're going to do is come up at the stem, at the smallest point of the little teardrop. And then I kind of place my thread so that it's mimicking the shape of that teardrop, like that. Now you're going to put your needle down in that same hole that you came up, and then right down at the end of the loop. Your thread's going to go under the needle, and you pull it away from you. If you pull it this way, it's just going to close up. So you have to pull it away from the loop. Now you've got a little lazy daisy, and all you have to do is just anchor it. So you put, excuse me, so you put the needle down right on the other side of that little loop, and now it's not going anywhere. And then you can just skip down to the next one. We'll do it one more time here. So again, I'm mimicking that loop. Put my needle down in that same hole up at the tip of the little teardrop. The thread goes under the needle, and I'm going to pull it away from where I began at that base, at the stem. And that's it, a little teardrop. Now, if you pull it really tight, it's going to close up the loop like that. I kind of like to have, which is fine, it's another look, but I kind of like to have the actual little loop like that showing. But it's not wrong either way. And that is how you do a lazy daisy stitch. Now let's stitch up this crown. Now this crown has some more of those itty bitty running stitches. And this time I'm going to try to do it as an actual running stitch. So I only have like 2 threads on my needle there. And I'm just going to take one at a time. And you'll notice I have this tail here. This tail I'll weave under, and that way I won't have a knot. So as soon as I have some stitches here, I can weave that under to secure it. Okay, these are the tiniest running stitches I've ever done on this project. They're I'm not sure what possessed me to do them so small, but hang in there with me. They're almost like just little dots. All right, there you go. So now I'm going to start down here in this corner, and I'm going to do a stem stitch, which I'm going to go over again. You can skip if you remember it. One thing I wanted to point out is if I hold my thread on this side, the stitches will kind of lean in a little bit, and they might cover up some of that space between the running stitches and the line. So I'm going to carry it on the outside. I'm going to take just a 1/16 of an inch, get that tail out of there. Oops, sorry to jiggle you around. Okay, so now I'm going to put my thread down, my needle down right in the corner. And then I'm going to turn my fabric over, run my needle under the previous stitch. Now that's anchored, and I can just come up in that same hole. So I'm going to have a nice crisp turn, which is particularly important on tiny things like this. And then just continue the little tiny stem stitches going up this side. Now across the top where we have all the little points, since those are so tiny, you really can't stem stitch those. That wouldn't make any sense. So those are just individual stitches. And what I like to do is, instead of turning a corner and going down, I'm just going to start down here. Since it's so close, I'm not carrying my thread very far on the back. And then go up to this. And now I'm going to go back where I started, down in that little V there. And come up this side. And then repeat that. Go down. And then back to the point. That way you don't have to try to figure out how to turn that corner. Just skip to the next stitch. You're not wasting that much thread. Okay, so I'll finish up the crown and then we'll move on to the bee. Actually, one last thing. So as I got to the end, I do want to turn that corner. So I'm just going to thread my needle through the previous stitch. And now I can pull it up right at that corner and we'll have a nice sharp edge to go down the other side. There we go. Okay, since my thread is so close to this bee, I'm not going to tie a knot, I'm just going to skip down there. So the antenna are just individual stitches, so we'll do those. And because this is going to get filled in, you could go ahead and take the stitch down into that blue a little bit, because those ends will be covered up. And that way you don't have to risk having a space between there. And I'm going to come over here and do this little leg too. Now it might be kind of hard to see, but there's a definite shape right here. This is going to be the head and the top of the body. Now there is, this might be hard to see. You can actually just fill the whole thing in if you want with French knots. But what I wanted to show you is there is a little indentation right there and right there, which makes this the head, this little tiny part right there. So for the head, I'm just going to do a satin stitch. So basically it's only a few stitches and it's going to start right where this shape comes into an indentation. And this is going to cover up these ends of my antenna, and it's only 3 little stitches. Boom, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to catch this leg. Now for the fun part. If you hate French knots, this might not be for you. But if you don't mind French knots or you want to practice, here's a good thing to practice on. So the nice thing about doing, like filling this in with French knots, and then we're going to fill that in with satin stitch, is because the fabric is blue, if your stitches aren't real close together, it's going to be fine. You don't have to make it really, really tight. So for a French knot, I'm just going to bring the needle up in this spot, wrap my thread around 2 times, put my needle down really close, but not in the same hole, wrap the threads down, hold it snug. Oh, I got a little, that's why it's important to hold this snug so you can make adjustments. Boop. Okay, there's the first one. So let's do it one more time. Wrap it 2 times, snug, and pull it through. So I'm just going to continue going around, and I'm going to fill that whole top part in with these French knots. And if you really, would rather do anything besides making French knots, you could always fill it in with satin stitch. So, this is your project. This is, there's no right or wrong. It's whatever makes you happy, because I want it to be something fun that you look forward to every month. and that's the most important part. So I'll finish making all these little French knots and we'll see how it turns out. And there is his fuzzy little top made up of French knots. And I don't know if you can tell, but they're not all touching each other. There's some space in between, and that's perfectly fine because you don't really notice it because of the blue fabric underneath. There we go. All the French knots are done. Now this bee is ready for his stripes. So we're going to do a satin stitch. And the nice thing about the bee stripes are they're not always, like if you looked at a bee, they're not maybe exactly perfectly straight. I'm guessing. I've never taken that close of a look at a bee, but I think since it's, you know, part of nature, it's probably not perfect. So that way, that's why your stitches don't have to be perfect. And it's, like I said before, extremely helpful to have that blue underneath. So my stitches are going to look a lot better because of that. Now this is a time when you might want to choose to use a hoop. Sometimes that helps if you're struggling with your satin stitches. And if this was something a little bigger project, I probably would use a small hoop. Okay, so when you get these little knot things, oh, that one just came out. Maybe it'll happen again. I'll show you how to get those out. That one was too easy. So I'm going to kind of turn, so they're kind of angled. So I actually went in the same hole as the previous stitch down here because it needs to be wider near his bottom than at his head. So I need to angle it a little bit more. Now, if you don't want to do a satin stitch, sorry. If you don't want to do a satin stitch, you could fill these in just with stem stitches. You could just do a row this way, row that way, row this way, and just fill it in. It would only take maybe 3 or 4 rows. And that would look good too. So I'm almost done here. And then I'm going to go ahead, finish this guy up, finish that up, and then I'll show you the rest of this little guy. So there's my bee stripes. And I'm going to do these little legs down here. Since that's pretty long, I don't necessarily want to do just one long stitch. So I'm going to do a back stitch. I'm just going to do 2 stitches touching each other like that. And then if you notice on this hind leg, how it's thicker near the body, I did 2 stitches to the knee. So 1, and then I come up close to the first one. And then at the knee, come down in the same hole. And now the bottom part of this leg is just 1 single stitch. And that's the same on the other side of this bee too. Okay, so let's skip right here and we're going to do this wing. This wing is a stem stitch. You could use a back stitch too, since it's so tight of a curve. Sometimes back stitches work better than stem stitches, but stem stitches work great if you take tiny, tiny stitches. These are just like 1/16 of an inch, and I'm carrying my thread on the outside of the curve. And if I go around the curve and it happens to fall in a little bit, I have no problem with just tacking it in place. See, I'll tack it there. Boom. And then I kind of come up and split that last stitch if I do that. And take 1 more stitch. There's the wing. I'm going to jump over here now, and I'm going to do the body. So I'm only going to stem stitch the outline of the bottom part of the body. I'm not going to do a stem stitch around the French knots. So just where the line is. And I'm just going to come down right on the outside of those satin stitches. And the fun thing about this Valdani thread being variegated is you can actually plan. I didn't plan this, but I like the way that that turned out, where the stitches are the dark blue and then the body is going to be a little bit lighter blue. Now there's the little stinger, and my thread came up right at that stinger. So since I'm down here, I'm just going to make a little stitch like that. I have a stinger. Now I'm going to come up back right where I should have continued, and then continue on. You can always just continue stem stitching around and then come back and put that little guy, the little stinger on too, but I figured since I was there, might as well get it done. And this little guy is almost finished. I love March weather when you get those sunny but really cool mornings. Oh my gosh, that's the best for a walk. Okay, so on this side, we've also got, we're going to take 2 stitches, come up in the same hole at the knee, and then a little distance at the body. Go down, do that part of the leg, and then this leg is just 1 single stitch. And there we go. Here is March, all done. Our little queen bee, she looks so happy now. She's got a crown and her stripes and her little fuzzy top, all ready for March weather. If it's not too warm out yet, she'll be just fine. Happy March, everybody, and we will see you next month.